Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. What up? This is not the sequel to Revenge of the Fox, this is another project I had been planning on doing. It's and full of surprises. It's different than most fics, so if you do not like stories that involve Orochimaru as main character, walk away right now. He is a little bit OOC at times, but he has a reason for wanting to destroy Konoha. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. So what is to be done with him, sir? Asked a white-haired man to his former sensei. A man who was forced to take up the mantle of Hokage again just hours ago after the tragedy that had happened. He held in his arms, wrapped in a blanket, a child barely born hours ago who let out soft cries as he found himself in a strange new world that he had been brought into. If only he knew what would lay ahead of him, his cries would be more sorrowful. "Are we going to kill it?" asked a blonde-haired woman who looked at the child. The sandaime didn't answer. He instead took a puff of his pipe and continued staring at the child, who attempted to open his eyes and stared back into his. His eyes, although blue in color, were shaped just like the one who he thought of as a son and his greatest pupil. He also had dark hair, and it would be long. His skin was light, yet more like his mother's than his father's skin was. He did not know what the child would think of the man who was his father. Or what the father would think of his child. "Sarutobi!" shouted Jiraiya, a bit annoyed with his silence. He was about to chastise him when a look from his former teammate silenced him with a glare. Sarutobi ignored the two and thought back of what had just happened, seemingly a lifetime ago, but only happened a few short hours. Flashback. "I do not believe Orochimaru cares for his soon-to-be-born child, or of Kushina," said Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime, to the group as they were in the Hokage's tower. The three inside nodded at one another, though Jiraiya was less acceptable than the others. He has been found guilty of crimes against the ninja code and of humanity. He cares nothing for life, his or others. He would turn the child into a sick, twisted, demented weapon of horror that he would use. Put in Tsunade, the woman crossing her arms. "Although I hate to say it, my once greatest pupil has go beyond the reach of any of us. Kami knows that we have tried. I fear what will happen to the poor child and of Kushina once she discovers what he will do," mused Sarutobi, sadly looking down at his feet. It pained him, for the man who he once considered a son to him would do such things. The experiments, such as the cursed seals and his obsession with life, had done much to him. Orochimaru, one of the most gifted and powerful ninjas in the world, who was once considered for the office Minato currently held, would be having a child. The woman Uzumaki Kushina, who was once a lover of Minato, had been pregnant for about 9 months and she was due today. She would be giving birth soon. Minato had called this meeting but not telling Orochimaru. From what they heard, Orochimaru had been with her the whole time during her labor, and that he seemed happy that he would have a child to call his own. The people of Konoha feared him. Not only was he a powerful adversary, but his experiments had taken many lives. Mitrashi Anko, the student who had loved her teacher and would faithfully follow him, had been one of the victims, though she had survived. It was fear that he would use any of them for his experiments that had caused part of Konoha to be paranoid of him, especially those with bloodlines abilities. "Jiraiya, do you have anything to say in the matter?" Jiraiya raised his head up and paused for a moment. He had tried his hardest to keep Orochimaru, the man who ever since his genin days who he considered a brother, from slipping down the path he had taken, but it seemed to be no use. Orochimaru had gone beyond the point of no return. Or had he? When Orochimaru and Kushina first met a year ago, after she and Minato had decided to call it quits, he had found her to be quite amusing with her attitude, and she found his personality charming. Soon they were spending time together, which Jiraiya feared would make Minato upset and think Orochimaru was using her to get back at him for taking the Hokage spot that he wanted. Yet something seemed to change when Kushina had gotten pregnant. Orochimaru appeared to no longer have his cold snake-like demeanor. He appeared to be friendly like the way they once were, and his eyes weren't filled with malice and hatred and lust like they had been. It appeared as if the Uzumaki woman was having an effect on him, and the foul air that had been around him seemed to be vanishing from him. Maybe Kushina was the one who had succeeded where they had failed. Jiraiya, sensei, asked the Yondaime, looking at him, a concerned look on his face. Jiraiya snapped his head into attention and responded, "I have nothing to say." The Yondaime sighed deeply and shook his head. "Then it leaves me with but one choice, it appears. Once the child is born, I will go there with a group of men and have Orochimaru banished from Konoha for life. Kushina and the child will stay. I'll talk to her and tell her why I did it. She'll understand." The three nodded and agreed. It seemed the only thing they could do. Minato stood up and prepared to leave when suddenly there was a loud roaring sound that shook the tower. The four raised their heads up in shock, wondering what on earth could that be. Minato rushed to a window and looked out, and his eyes widened in shock and in horror at what he saw. "It cannot be," he whispered to himself, his heart clutched with fear. Standing over wreckage with both of its eyes filled with malice and destruction, the nine-tailed fox. At the hospital, Kushina breathed heavily. The labor and delivery was more painful than she had thought it would be, but it was finally done. The child was born and was being cleaned up. Her body was covered with sweat and she ached all over in pain. "It's all right, Kushina. It is over. Our son has been born," whispered the black-haired man to her, softly holding her hand. She allowed a small smile at that news. "I'm never having another kid," she said to the father of her child. "In due time you'll probably want another one," he said with a smirk. The two smiled and he wrapped an arm around her, holding her tight, thanking Kami that everything appeared to be well. He had no idea what would have happened to her if something had went wrong. The two awaited their child to be brought to them when they suddenly heard a horrible sound. The sound of roaring that could be heard throughout the hospital. The building shook and lights flickered on and off as Orochimaru held onto her, making sure she didn't strain herself. Orochimaru then saw a ninja who appeared to have been burned to a crisp being brought in. He went over to him and asked what happened. The ninja looked up at him and responded, "A.M. monster, AF Fox W with N9 tails, it is heading this way." The ninja then slumped down and Orochimaru could tell he was dead. For perhaps the first time in his life, fear gripped Orochimaru's heart and soul. It couldn't be a nine-tailed fox. That was the Kyuubi. He turned his head to look at Kushina, who appeared trying to sleep. He quickly went over to her. "Kushina, I'll be back in a while. Just stay calm and don't panic. Our son will be here soon," he told her, and then left the room and headed out of the hospital, trying to pass the many wounded and soon to be dead. He had to stop Kyuubi, not only for his life, but Kushina's and their sons' lives as well. The Yondaime rushed out of the gates of the Hokage's tower, not listening to the others telling him it was too dangerous for him as Hokage to go. Seeing that he wouldn't be stopped, Tsunade and Jiraiya themselves headed to the battlefield. When they got there, they looked around in horror at the dead bodies of countless shinobi and civilians. They also saw an odd sight. A single person they did not expect was there in attempting battle with the fox demon. He had summoned a giant snake and was on top of it and attempting jutsu after jutsu, though they had no effect on it. "Orochimaru," murmured Tsunade in disbelief that he would be on the front lines. What was he doing here? He's either finally gone mad or he's attempting to stop the Kyuubi from reaching Kushina, replied Jiraiya. Tsunade looked at him, a bit shocked at the words. She had half expected him to not be here. She even thought that he would flee the village, leaving the others behind. They then saw the Kyuubi pin the snake and crush and swatted Orochimaru away with a mere flick of its paw. He was knocked onto the ground and he appeared to not be moving. The Kyuubi, annoyed that a mere human had stood in his way for so long, prepared to crush him with his paw. Jiraiya, remembering the friendship they once had, quickly ran and just narrowly before he was crushed managed to grab Orochimaru and move him out of the way. Orochimaru opened his eyes and looked surprised to see him. "What are you doing here? Saving your skin as always." Orochimaru attempted to stand up and prepared to confront the fox again when they then saw the Yondaime appear. He was on top of the toad boss and held in his arms a child. Orochimaru didn't need to see it to tell that that was his son. What are you doing?" Before he could get to them, he was suddenly grabbed by Tsunade. He attempted to fight her off, but she was using all her strength to hold him. Jiraiya then grabbed him as well, and he could not hope to match the equal strength of them. The Yondaime looked at the Kyuubi and then began to do a series of hand jutsus that Orochimaru recognized. He wouldn't dare, he thought to himself as he struggled to break free, but to no avail. "Kami, forgive me," Minato said to himself and to the child as he finished the hand seals. The Kyuubi, realizing what was happening, howled in fury and tried to break free. The demon roared in anger as it slowly started to fade from existence. It disappeared from view and appeared to go into the newborn child. The toad boss let him down, and with his last ounce of strength Minato placed the child down and collapsed dead. "My son," murmured Orochimaru, no longer struggling in disbelief over what had happened. "What did this have to happen?" "I'm sorry, Orochimaru, he had no choice," apologized Jiraiya to him as they loosened their hold on him and he fell to his knees. Sarutobi walked forward and saw the carnage. He had been busy trying to get people out of Konoha and was too late. He saw his 3 students, he saw the fallen Hokage, and he saw the newborn child which Kyuubi had been sealed into. He walked forward and carefully picked him up. "Kushina is dead, she died due to the labor," he said out loud to Orochimaru, whose face was blank. He looked over at him and saw how his eyes were empty and lifeless. He felt sadness for him despite what he had done. "Come, we have much to do. All of you." He then turned around and walked away. Tsunade and Jiraiya joined him, each looking back at their former comrade. As they made their way, they then heard him speak up. "I was going to change my ways." They turned around and saw him standing up. "Kushina had changed me. She made me feel happy. She made me stop doing those experiments. I was going to marry her after our son was born and we would raise him together like a family should. This wasn't supposed to happen." At that his eyes narrowed in hatred and each could feel malice coming from him. "Orochimaru, please listen," started Sarutobi but got interrupted. "Quiet, old fool. Do any of you know the pain I feel right now? How my heart has been torn from my chest and tossed to the ground by that damn Minato." He spatted the name out full of rage. "Kushina is dead, and my son has been forced to have the Kyuubi inside him. You know this damn village of bigots and prejudice will never accept him, for they will fear him, the same as they feared me." His snake eyes engulfed them all. "I will let all of you know this, I will abandon Konoha this instant. But do not think this is the last time you'll see me. Once I've gained enough power, I'll come back and destroy this damn place. I will have my revenge, and so will Naruto." With that he disappeared before any of them could stop them, leaving them all with his warning. Flashback ends. Sarutobi let out a sigh and looked down at the baby boy, who let out soft cries. He could still hear Orochimaru's threat and wondered what would happen. But first things first, he had to ensure the child's safety. He placed the child on a table and removed its blanket, revealing the whisker-like scars on his face and the seal that was on his stomach. Tsunade and Jiraiya looked on, wondering what he was doing. Surely he wouldn't kill the child. Sarutobi then began a series of hand seals and after doing casted the jutsu. He looked down and saw the boy, Naruto was what Orochimaru called him, start to change. His black hair started to become lighter and soon turned into blonde. His eyes became more round-like and no longer looked like Orochimaru's. And finally his skin turned more tanned and less lighter. He looks like Minato, said Jiraiya looking at the child. Sarutobi nodded. Correct, I did this to protect him. If the council and the villagers found out he was the son of Orochimaru, we would be unable to protect him. By casting in genjutsu on him I can make him appear as if he was the Minato's child. He then turned to face them. No one is to ever find out he is Orochimaru's child. For everyone else they will think he is the son of Minato. Only the three of us will know the truth. Tsunade and Jiraiya nodded, fully understanding. Sarutobi then looked over at the crying newborn. Welcome to Konoha, Uzumaki Naruto. At the Hokage's tower, the day after Kyuubi's attack, Sarutobi, the Sandaime once again having to take up the mantle of Hokage, looked at the group before him. A majority of the councilmen, along with a large group of ninjas. Which he sadly looked at, seeing how most of them were young. There were few Jonin, most of their best Anbu and men had died the day before in the attack. A majority of the ninjas were either Chunins or high-ranked genin. He noticed Orochimaru's former student Anko there and a young Hatake Kakashi, former student of Minato, there as well. So was Yumino Iruka, a young ninja who lost his parents yesterday. In the back were Tsunade and Jiraiya, who looked on wondering what was going to happen. Sighing, he stood up and held out baby Naruto, who was asleep. The crowd drew deathly quiet, seeing the marks on his face. As you know, the Yondaime sacrificed his life to save us from the wrath of the fox demon yesterday. He used a jutsu to summon the death god and seal Kyuubi away. This child, the child who was just born yesterday, contains the Kyuubi inside him. A silence fell over the crowd as they looked on at the child. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Then came the outburst. Kill it. That monster lives inside it. Kill the child before he sets the fox on us. Loud calls from the crowd demanding Naruto's death erupted from them. Jiraiya shook his head in dismay. Only Anko remained silent, not saying a thing. She was wondering what had happened to Orochimaru. He wasn't listed among those dead, so where was he? So much for things going smoothly, murmured Tsunade. Sarutobi looked on in dismay as some ninjas drew weapons prepared to take the child's life themselves. Hearing their outburst, the young baby let out a wail and Sarutobi feared that it would drive them on further. Enough. He shouted, his voice sounding like it was shot out a cannon. The crowd quieted down, seeing that he was serious. I knew you were angry and confused over what has happened, but I didn't think any of you would stoop as low as to kill a defenseless child. You forget that this child could grow up to be a great and powerful ninja. We have lost many and we do not need more added to that list. We are in a weakened state due to the attack. I have talked with some of the councilmen and they have agreed that we should let the child live and train him so that we'll have an extra defense in battle. Cries came from the crowd, but this time were mixed. Most of the genins and younger chunins agreed in approval of it, while the older ninjas had scowls of disapproval on their faces, not wanting to see the child grow up and be a potential danger to them. Martial arts films. Sounds like it's divided in half, said Tsunade, watching on. Wanna make a bet about which side gets the vote? Asked Jiraiya to her. Tsunade declined. Odds were whatever side she picked she would have lost. A voice called for silence and one of the council members, the head of the Hyuga clan, Hiashi, stood up. I am neutral on this, Sandaime. I'd rather not see the child grow up to be a threat to us, nor would I ever agree to taking a child's life. But you have failed to mention us. Who are the parents of this child? Who are his parents? Are they here? Sarutobi frowned and slowly responded. He is the son of the Yondaime. He told me that he had met a woman in secret and she had given birth to the boy yesterday. She died during birth. A murmur of surprise erupted from the crowd. The Yondaime had a son. How come none of them were ever told about this? Kakashi's eyes were widened in disbelief. It wasn't like his former sensei to keep secrets, as he was an honest man. Anko's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Something wasn't right here. Hiyashi frowned, not convinced, and seeing one of the clan members there nodded towards him. The ninja, realizing what he wanted him to do, made his way to the back and quietly activated his Byakugan. He was able to get a good look at the child and saw nothing out of the ordinary. It had blonde hair and looked just like the Yondaime did. There was nothing strange about him. Deactivating it, he shrugged at Hiyashi, telling him there wasn't anything out of the ordinary with the child. Martial arts films. Sarutobi knew that the Hyuga had attempted his Byakugan and he knew he didn't see anything suspicious. The genjutsu he had casted on Naruto was powerful enough to block out even the Byakugan. It would take a powerful ninja to reverse the genjutsu he had put on him, hiding his true features underneath. And it was good that he had done it. Had they had learned who his true parents were, nothing would stop them from trying to kill the child. It was bad enough they wanted him dead for holding the Kyuubi. If they found out he was Orochimaru's son, a riot would have taken place here. The time would come, hopefully, where he would be able to tell them the truth and remove that genjutsu off of him, but he would have to wait before that would happen. Though he expected it would be long past his time before it would happen. The crowd slowly murmured their approval of letting him live. Eventually they left, heading back outside to rebuild Konoha. Sarutobi sighed, glad that this was finally over, and looked down at Naruto, who had fallen back asleep. Of the ninjas, one of them was deep in thought. Anko had seen no sign of her sensei. Although she hated the man for what he had done to her, she wondered where he was. The purple-haired Kunoichi had looked around for him but never saw a glimpse of him. He wasn't with the others, Jiraiya and Tsunade, so it made no sense as to why he hadn't appeared. She had looked for him yesterday after the attack, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had disappeared off of the face of the earth. He wasn't listed among those who had died. She had noticed a small change in him the past couple of months, and he appeared to be going back to his old self, that was the man she knew and respected and would follow any order he gave. And there was the rumor that the woman he had met, Kushina, was going to have a child. She had asked people for any information regarding him or the woman but got nothing. Most looked around fearfully as if expecting him to appear behind them when she asked them. She had gotten nothing. But then there was this kid, this little runt that had contained the Kyuubi. She really didn't believe that that was the Yondaime's son. Konoha would have known if he was going to have an heir. Something wasn't right about all this. She was determined to find out what. At an forest far from Konoha, a figure rested himself against a tree and let out a sigh. He had been running for the past day with memories of what had happened fresh in his mind. How had this come to be? Yesterday his son was going to be born, and after a couple days had passed he would have married Kushina and they would have raised their son together and live happily in Konoha. Now everything came crashing down. She had changed him. She melted the coldness that had surrounded his heart and made him feel again. At first he thought he could easily manipulate her into doing his bidding like he did with Anko, but she possessed a will that couldn't be broken. She had found him to be charming, a genius, and determined to prove himself. Yet his views were misguided and she had made him stop doing his experiments. She told him it wasn't right for him to take the lives of others just to satisfy his own desire of youth. He remembered what had caused him to start doing those experiments. Flashback. A young child stood overlooking the grave of his parents. Rain poured down on top of him. Tears poured from his eyes. Beside him was a younger Sarutobi who put his hand on the boy's shoulder. It hurts Sarutobi-sensei, said young Orochimaru. I know Orochimaru, I know. Why did they have to die? Sarutobi wasn't sure how to answer that. The boy's parents died in battle. It was a battle with stone that had attacked Konoha when they were caught off guard. Orochimaru's parents died in the battle, leaving him alone with no one. He had no living family members as he was by himself. Another victim of war. They died protecting their son. They wanted to make sure that their child would be able to live. It's not fair. How come they had to leave me? Orochimaru. Sarutobi put his hand on him, but he removed his hand off him, not wanting to be touched. Mama, Papa, why did you have to go? I need you. Tears poured down his eyes. Why did people have to die? How come all of them had to die? And leave the ones who they left behind in sorrow? They shouldn't have to leave the ones behind in sorrow and agony. It wasn't fair. He had just started at the academy and his parents were so proud of him. He had wanted his parents to see him become a full ninja and wanted to protect them instead of having them protect him as always. Death and tragedy. The boy clenched his fist and his eyes closed. People shouldn't have to die without living their dreams and having people get hurt when they die. They should be able to live happily without fear of dying. Someday, I'll unlock the secret to life and how to bring people back to life and keep them from dying. And then no one will ever have to suffer again. Flashback ends. That was the start, wanting to bring his parents back to life and find how to keep people from dying. He spent nearly every waking moment he had studying, trying to unlock the secret that he wanted to find. He still couldn't find it until he came across the forbidden jutsus. He could resurrect people, but he would have to sacrifice someone to do so. And he could use a jutsu that would transfer his body to another person's and prolong his life. His goals became corrupted and he no longer held the ideals that he once had. He knew this wasn't right, but he wouldn't listen. He even used his own students for experiments. Only 2 survived, Anko and another one named Yamato. His teammates and the man who he once considered a father after his own had died had tried to stop him from doing this, but he didn't care. Obsessed with his research, he was trapped in the darkness. Until Kushina came and pulled him out. When he had learned that he had made her pregnant, he felt as if that was what he wanted all along. A child to call his own and to have so it wouldn't suffer the same loneliness he did. Now she was dead and his son was all alone. Thinking of his son, he sighed and closed his eyes. Odds were either Naruto was dead or soon would be. Or worse, they would attempt to turn him into a weapon they could use due to the Kyuubi inside him. But that wasn't Sarutobi's style. Even if he did hate him, he would never turn a child into a weapon. But he knew what Naruto would experience growing up. Hatred, prejudice, discrimination. He would suffer growing up, all because he was different than the rest of those fools who believed themselves superior to others. He wanted revenge against the bastards that had done that to his son. Although he could have gotten Naruto and taken him away from there, he would have had to fight his teacher and former comrades to do so. And he knew he wouldn't make much of a father living like a rogue ninja with the 2 of them on the run all the time. Well, looky what we have here, boys. He opened his eyes and found himself staring at a group of armed bandits. This is our territory. If you wish to pass through here, you must pay a toll. Right, lads? Asked the leader, a scarred figure who had a sword and was missing an eye. The rest of them laughed in agreement. Orochimaru just laid there, not staring at them blankly. I say, about 50 gold coins would be enough to satisfy us, so pay up, said the leader, licking his lips. Orochimaru looked at them, not bothering to even reach towards his sword or a kunai. Are ye deaf? Either pay up or we kill you, shouted one of them with a bow and arrow. Easy, he's probably a little slow in the head, I'll make it simple for him. You either give us your money and we let you go, or we take it from you and dump your rotting carcass for the crows," snarled the leader, drawing his blade. Orochimaru allowed a small smirk to appear at them. "All right, you had your chance. Kill him, boys." The leader swung his sword at his neck, attempting to behead him. The only thing he struck was wood, as Orochimaru had already moved. He put a kunai and made a stab at one of them who had a spear. The man dodged it, but that wasn't the purpose of the attack. Orochimaru reached out his other hand and grasped him by the throat and snapped his neck. He then avoided an arrow shot at him by the archer of the group and ducked a swipe at his head. He saw one of them charge him out of the corner of his eye. He sidestepped and stabbed him in the throat with a kunai. He pulled it out and threw it at another bandit, which struck him directly in the skull. He easily dodged another arrow from the archer. That man was starting to become an annoyance. He'd deal with him soon enough. There was 3 left: the leader, the archer, and one equipped with claws. The one with claws charged him and attempted to bury them in his flesh. Orochimaru grinned and did hand signals and raised his arm up. Snakes emerged from it, much to the shock of the man, and they wrapped around his throat and bit into his face, killing him. Orochimaru then disappeared before the final 2 could get him. "Where'd he go?" shouted the leader. "He disappeared like a ghost," exclaimed the archer, looking around in fear. The 2 looked around trying to find him. The archer had another arrow notched, yet was shaking with fear all over his body. "Do you see him, Melf?" he asked the leader by his name. He got no answer. "Melf, do you see him? Where is he?" he asked again, becoming more terrified. He then heard the sound of a sword entering through flesh and a groan, and he knew Melf was dead. He turned around and dropped his bow and arrow as he saw Melf collapse to the ground, his killer's sword stained with blood. He then saw him direct his golden snake eyes at him, and a dark smile formed at his face. Please don't kill me. I'll do anything you want me to do." Orochimaru smiled and lowered his blade. The man, thinking he was letting him go, felt relief go through him. It quickly passed when he saw the sword go straight through his chest and out the other side. "You can start by being food for the maggots," Orochimaru replied coolly as he jerked him off his weapon. He looked at the dead bodies and envisioned them as the ones who had taken his son from him, had made him become the vessel for the fox demon. Although it would take time for him to gather strength, he will come back to Konoha and get his son back and make each and every one of them pay. Rain. It was said that rain was caused by the tears of angels when someone died. The pale man with a cloak covering his body and a hood covering his head never really believed it. But with all the water dropping from the heavens onto the ground and filling up lakes, he was starting to believe it. The land of rain, a megakure, it was a fitting name for the area. He had been here for barely 3 days, and except for a few hours of cloudiness, it was raining all the time. The man knew his history of the land. It seemed that there always was a war going on in AIM. Power struggles were common in the land, and it was quite often that there were numerous rulers at one time. Orochimaru walked over a bridge and peered down into the water. Transportation throughout the land was by either bridges or boat. Due to the deep water caused by the rain, there was very little roads that weren't submerged. Or if a man was brave or foolish enough, he could try to swim, but the water was unpredictable. Calm one moment, raging the next. Currently, the ruler of the land was unknown. He had defeated the former ruler and taken up command of the land. His laws was simple, and those who did not follow them would be executed. He also had spies everywhere, and it was said that he could tell where people were by the rain, thus those who attempted to rebel against him would be killed before they knew it. Orochimaru saw a tavern and, not really thirsty by needing some information, headed towards it. It had a few patrons in it. A couple ninja, some guards, a few civilians who sat huddled next together, and a man who was wearing a cloak that had red clouds on it and a unique hat covering his head. He seemed to be reading from a book that Orochimaru couldn't tell what it was, but it didn't appear to be one of those ridiculous books Jiraiya wrote. When he walked on, all attention was immediately focused on him. The ninjas and guards, not recognizing him, had their hands on their weapons as he walked by, and he felt the stares of them all on him. Not listening to them, he slowly sat down at a table near to the man reading from his book. The owner of the tavern mentioned for one of the barmaids to attend to him. The barmaid, who was probably a lady in question, walked over to him with a lewd smile. "What can I get ya, stranger?" she asked with a bit of a lisp to her voice. Orochimaru looked at her disgustedly. She had cheap makeup and perfume on and was wearing an outfit that revealed herself. She wasn't very pretty, and her being close irritated him. "A glass of sake," he said quietly and handed her a few coins. The woman, with a wink at him, took the money and went away. There didn't seem to be much going on here, and after he had his drink he would leave. "Damn it, useless wench. Leave it there until I am done with it." He turned his head and saw the cloaked figure was standing upright and yelling at a young girl who thought he was done with his bottle of sake. The man went on a tirade, calling the poor girl all sorts of names and telling she was lucky that he already had gotten his amount of kills today, or she would have been the next one sent to Jashin. That made Orochimaru's eyes open a bit in surprise. A follower of Jashin here? That was a bit unexpected. The followers of Jashin were said to believe that life was a curse and that they would be healing the world by killing those who had life. It was said that to them, a slaughter and the piles of dead bodies was the most beautiful thing in the world to them. That cult-like group was known to be extremely psychotic and dangerous, and Orochimaru, watching the man, had to agree. The book he had must have some sort of Bible that he was reading. The man sat back down muttering curses and picked up his book and continued reading it. Seeing nothing else interesting, Orochimaru watched him on as the barmaid returned and gave him his drink. He downed it and grimaced. The sake had a bad taste. No wonder there was few people here. Suddenly, to his annoyance, he felt the woman place her hands on him. "Ya know, with a few more coins I can give you a warm room and bed safe from the weather. Plus some additional company to entertain you." A scowl formed on his face and he gripped the woman's hand and shoved her away. "I don't deal with women who sleep for money," he growled as he tossed her into a table which was the guard's table. The guards, probably just waiting for something to happen so they could fight into them, one of the tavern's best ladies being treated so poorly was enough for them. They drew their weapons and prepared to attack him. Watching the scene was the Jashin follower, who watched it with a bit of interest. Seeing that he could be in trouble, Orochimaru drew a kunai but relaxed. These were just your average thugs, they shouldn't be any trouble. They came at him full of arrogance, seeing that he only had a kunai. He dodged a strike and punched one of them in the face. He then made a vertical slice with kunai and cut off one of the guard's ears. He then moved out of the way of their attacks and leapt backwards, putting some distance between them. The thugs attempted to charge him but stopped when a scythe decapitated one of them. "Enough!" shouted the cloaked Jashin follower. "You pieces of shit, go back to what you were doing, I'll handle this maggot. This is Akatsuki business." He sneered at them and they quickly backed off. He then turned to Orochimaru. "You, take off your hood, I want to see a man before he becomes a corpse." Orochimaru frowned, but seeing that not complying would result in trouble, removed his hood, revealing himself. The man stared at him and then, much to his surprise, withdrew his weapon. "Come with me now. Our leader will be most interested in you. You might be of some use to Akatsuki," he ordered him. Orochimaru, confused but seeing he had little choice in the matter, followed the man out of the tavern. At Konoha, Anko sighed, finally able to see the Sandaime. She had been trying to get a meeting between him and her for the past month, but due to the cleaning up and period of mourning, she wasn't able to. Granted, she could have snuck into his room, but odds were with all the Anbu protecting him, if she would have been caught and killed before they recognized her. It was the first month after the Kyuubi attacked and things were changing. Tsunade had left, taking her young apprentice Shizune with her. She didn't say why she was leaving, but most thought it was because she was tired of all the bloodshed and war. And Jiraiya, who was mourning the loss of his student, appeared that he might leave as well. It was a relief to those who went to the hot springs if he did, in their opinion. So she had to wait until she could see him. She hated waiting, as patience was never her strong point. But finally she was able to see him. She entered his office and saw him looking over papers. She didn't see any guards but knew they were probably close by. "Ah, Anko, how can I help you?" he asked her, looking up from his paperwork. "I wanted to ask you about something." "Certainly. Where is Orochimaru?" That made Sarutobi pause and stare at the young Kunoichi. "Why do you want to know that?" "He hasn't been seen ever since the Kyuubi attack. The last time I saw him was the day before. He seemed happy on that day, and he seemed like the man who I once called my sensei. He isn't listed among the dead, and I've tried asking Jiraiya after I pounded him for trying to flirt with me, and Tsunade about him before she left. But they didn't tell me anything. Where is he? I want to know why he isn't here." Sarutobi let out a sigh. "I'm afraid I can't tell you that, Anko." Anko frowned and slammed her hands against the desk, startling him. Although she knew she was acting wrong, her patience had worn thin and she was tired of her questions being avoided. "Damn it, old man. Tell me the truth. Where is he? Why isn't he here?" Sarutobi looked into her eyes and knew she wouldn't stop until he told her everything. "Orochimaru has left. He left the day the Kyuubi attacked." "What do you mean? Are you saying he ran off and didn't try to defend Konoha?" "No. As you know, the rumor of him having a child turned out to be true. You remember Uzumaki Kushina, don't you?" Anko nodded. She and the fourth once had a relationship, but they broke up about a year ago. It was also a year ago when Orochimaru, who had harmed her with those experiments, met her as well. Orochimaru impregnated her with a child. She died giving birth to it. And the child. Sarutobi then stood up. "Anko, what I'm about to show you is something that no one else can ever find out. Of all of Konoha, only me, Jiraiya, and Tsunade know this. Promise me that you will not tell a soul about this," he said in all seriousness to her. Anko, realizing that this was heavily classified, nodded her head. He mentioned for her to follow him to a room. The two entered it and Anko saw a crib, and in it was Naruto, who was asleep. Sarutobi went to it and gently picked the toddler up out of it so he wouldn't wake him up and brought him to Anko. She was a bit surprised to see it here. Though it probably would soon go to the orphanage soon. "Do you know who this is?" he asked her. Anko frowned, slightly annoyed at him. "That's the Kyuubi child. You said that it's the Yondaime's son. And another thing, I don't really buy that. Kakashi told me that if the Yondaime ever had a child, he would tell the whole world about it. It didn't seem like him to hide it from all of us that he was going to have a son." Sarutobi smiled sadly and slowly did a couple of hand symbols and pointed at the child. Anko gasped in shock as to her surprise the child started to change. Its blonde hair turned dark and become longer, its skin became lighter, and its eyes more slanted and more like a snake. The child still slept, unaware of its features changing. One thing that remained the same was the marks on his face. "How did you? And Genjutsu, this is not the Yondaime's child. Can you guess who it is?" Anko's eyes widened as it all came clear. Oh, Orochimaru's. She could see the resemblance in the hair and the eyes. No doubt about it. That was her former sensei's child. Correct. Before she died, Kushina told the Yondaime to use the child to stop Kyuubi. She believed that Orochimaru would understand, but alas, he didn't. Then where is he? He left after he saw Minato seal the demon inside his son. Witnessing that event and hearing about the death of Kushina shattered his heart. He left Konoha and vowed to return one day and reclaim his son. Anko stared at the child that was the son of the man who had used her. The child then unexpectedly woke up and opened his blue eyes. Seeing Anko, he then attempted to reach over and touch her. Anko backed away defensively from it. The child let out a soft wail, saddened by that, and looked like he was about to cry. I can't look at that thing," she exclaimed, turning her back to it. "Anko," replied Sarutobi. He then saw her reach up towards her neck, where the seal Orochimaru had put on her. I know it's wrong for me to hate the child. But you don't understand what Orochimaru did to me. The lies, the experiments, the death of others. Except for Yamato, I was the only survivor of his twisted schemes. Just by looking at that child, I still remember what he did to me." Sarutobi walked over to her and placed a hand on his shoulder. She then felt another hand, a smaller one, brush against her. She then looked down and saw to her surprise Naruto. The toddler brushed his small hand against her, interested in who she was. The child's eyes stared up into hers, full of curiosity. "I think he wants you to hold him," replied Sarutobi with a smirk. Anko frowned. "Oh please, she was a ninja, not a nanny." Knowing he wouldn't stop until she did, she reluctantly held out her arms and took him. The toddler pressed himself against her, seeking warmth. She felt awkward, holding the son of the man who betrayed her. The Sandaime had a smile on his face, looking at the two as the girl ran her fingers through his black hair. She held him for a while until he started to fall asleep again. She then handed him over to Sarutobi. He recasted the genjutsu on him and he looked like he did before. "Not so bad as he?" asked Sarutobi with a chuckle. He then turned serious. "Anko, you cannot tell anyone about this. You know, if they learned about this, that Orochimaru was Naruto's father, there would be a riot demanding his death due to not only having the Kyuubi but being his son as well. You know, Orochimaru was feared and they would fear his kin for that he would do the same thing his father did. I do this so the child can be protected for now. Someday when he's old enough to protect himself, I'll have someone tell the truth, but right now he is young and helpless." Anko nodded, understanding. "What will happen to him when you have to give him up?" Sarutobi sighed. "I'd have to give him to the orphanage. There he will have to live until he is old enough to be given a home. Though I suspect they will treat him poorly. I'll look after him," said Anko. Sarutobi looked at her a bit surprised. "I can't give him a home with me and support the both of us, but I can make sure he doesn't get picked on. I can make sure he doesn't get harmed by the bastards." Sarutobi allowed a smile. "Seems to me that you're beginning to like the boy." Anko frowned. "Of course not. I'm just looking after him because it'd be the right thing to do." The Sandaime nodded. He would need protection growing up, and Anko was just the right person to do the job. At a megacure, Orochimaru followed the man, who did not give out his name yet seemed to hold some authority here, as civilians and even high-ranked ninjas scrambled out of his way. The man was quiet except for whenever someone didn't get out of his way fast enough and he would curse at them. Orochimaru wondered where he was being taken. He had a hand on his sword and was prepared to cast a jutsu should he be in danger, which he didn't doubt he was in. Soon the man came to what appeared to be a stone placed against water. Murmuring to himself, he placed his hand against the stone and pushed against it. The water suddenly dried up and the stone gave way to a secret entranceway, a path of stairs leading downwards. "Follow me," ordered the man to him as he went down. Orochimaru followed him, and once he had gotten a distance, the pathway darkened as the hidden passage sealed off. Adjusting his eyes to the darkness, Orochimaru then saw torches that lit up by themselves. The two walked for what seemed like to Orochimaru for miles until they finally came into a chamber. Orochimaru then noticed that sitting on a chair in the chamber was a man who he couldn't exactly see fully. Beside him was a blue-haired woman. And he saw a man, or was it plant-like creature standing at the edge of the doorway. Behind them was a rather unique statue. The man raised his head and saw the two. "Who is this Hidan? Why have you brought him here?" Hidan bowed and went into a prayer position. "This man I saw create a fight in the city. I stopped it after a few moments and went to kill him myself for Jashin until I saw who he was. It was then that Jashin spoke to me, telling me that the Pale One could be of use to us. So I brought him here before you so he could help us bathe in the glory of Jashin." Orochimaru had seen fanatics before, but this guy took it to a whole new level. He had no intention of serving Jashin and would rather die than serve him. "Enough, Hidan, quit rambling and let the man introduce himself," ordered the man. "I am Orochimaru, former ninja of Konoha." The man sat there impassively. The Orochimaru, one of the 3 legendary leaves of Konoha. S-class nin who was believed to be one of the most powerful ninjas ever. "That is who you are." Orochimaru shrugged. "Who else would I be, unless I got amnesia and lost my true name and took that name? I am Orochimaru." "But who are you?" The man sat there and smirked. "I don't give my name to those who haven't earned my trust." "But why are you here, Leaf? You're a long way away from Konoha." At that Orochimaru scowled. "I left Konoha. I no longer consider it my home." "So you are a missing nin, are you not?" "So it would seem. A ninja of your skill would be a great use to us. I offer you a proposition. Join us, we could use a ninja of your knowledge and abilities." "Why would I join a group that contains a foul-mouthed fanatic and a half-man half-plant being?" he asked him. The man smirked. "It would appear that you haven't heard of us. Well, we prefer to keep ourselves a secret anyway. I am the leader of Akatsuki, a group of ninjas who seek to rule the world." "Oh, yes, we seek to rule the world. The world has become foolish and wrathful. We can fix it and make it peaceful once again." Orochimaru frowned. Sounded just like a megalomaniac with delusions of grandeur that he would never achieve. He prepared to decline the invitation until the man spoke up again. "But don't think that we are unprepared for such a task. For you see, our plan is to capture the tailed beasts." At that Orochimaru's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "We seek to capture the demons. Once we have all 9, we would be able to fulfill our plan and take over the world easily. That is our plan. With them we could conquer the world with no problem at all, as there is no force in this world powerful enough to defeat all 9 demons." The plan did sound good to the Snake Man, and he would have agreed except for one thing. They would try to go after Naruto, for he had the demon fox inside him. But then a thought came into his head. He could pretend to join the group and then he would be able to get his son. He wasn't sure if they knew about the Kyuubi attack, but if he was to join them he would be able to sneak into there and get him. Once he had gotten him, he could take him away from there, and then he could take him far away, and then father and son would be reunited. Your plan sounds possible to do so. But exactly are we supposed to capture the demons? The man waved it away as if it was nothing. Most of them are sealed inside other people, and we could send a team to get them easily, as most of the vessels are hated. Also, the person dies when we extract the demon from them. That made Orochimaru frown. No way was he gonna let his son be killed by this group, but he couldn't let them know that he was the father. "Very well, I shall join your group." The man nodded, understanding. "Very well, but first we must test you." "Test? To see if you are capable of joining the organization and not a hindrance." Suddenly a trap door gave away from underneath his feet, and before he could react he had fallen through. He found himself going down through a chute, unable to stop himself. It then stopped and fell a short distance onto the ground. He went to pick himself up, but then heard the loud stomping sound and then a great roar. He heard a gate being opened and he then saw something step out of the lair. Orochimaru backed away and looked at the dragon. It was well over 10 feet tall on all fours and 25 feet wide. Black wings sprouted from its back and Orochimaru was glad the area was too small for it to fly in. Its red scales burned like fire in the pit and its eyes burned with intelligence. This was no mere dumb monster, it was an intelligent being that knew what it was doing. The dragon roared and brought its wings up and batted them, causing a great gust of wind to batter him. Orochimaru brought his arms up to defend himself as he felt cuts from the wind across his body. He scowled and decided it was time to teach this monstrosity a lesson. "Have a taste of your own medicine," he shouted as he made hand seals. Futon. Datapa. He then fired his own gust of wind at the dragon. What was powerful enough to destroy a wide area proved to have little effect on the beast. Orochimaru wasn't done yet though as he prepared another jutsu. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. He then sent a fireball at the beast, striking it in the chest. Yet if the dragon felt any pain, he didn't show it. The dragon roared and spun around attempting to strike him with its tail. He narrowly dodged at the last instant, and when the tail hit the floor it felt as if a heavy tremor had struck, causing the area to shake. Orochimaru, seeing an opening with the dragon, turned around, leapt and landed on its tail. He then charged on its back and pulled out his sword. Seeing an opportune moment to strike, he stabbed the beast in the back. The dragon roared in anger at being struck and shook him off, tossing him to the ground. Orochimaru pulled himself up and narrowly avoided a claw which would have crushed him. He rolled over and got up and leapt backwards and stared into the dragon's eyes. "You're lasting longer than the last fools," muttered the dragon with a growl. Orochimaru looked at it a bit surprised, not expecting it to talk. The dragon huffed out a puff of smoke. "Yes, I can talk, human. Do not be so surprised that a mere animal possesses intelligence to speak the tongue of humans. That shall be your kind's ultimate downfall, your arrogance of believing yourselves dominate over others." For some reason Orochimaru thought of Manda at that moment. The dragon possessed a similar attitude like the snake and believed itself superior to others. Apparently the dragon was probably a distant relation to Manda. "Pardon my interruption, but might I ask who exactly are you?" The dragon made a sound similar to mocking laughter. "I do not give my name to my meal very often, but since you have lasted longer than most, my name shall be the last you now. My name is Sorosh, dragon of over 300 years of age." "I see, then how is it that you came under the possession of the one above you?" Sorosh growled. "I was defeated 30 years ago by a human who, instead of killing, thought it would be fun to have me as a pet. For 30 years I was forced to live down here as a pet of those who ruled Rain. It's boring not being able to see the destruction of the world up above. Only fun I get is when the ruler sends me a human to devour as he feeds me well. Well, I hate to spoil your appetite, but you'll find me hard to digest as I don't plan on being eaten," responded Orochimaru. Sorosh found this highly amusing. "Anime and manga. I'd like to see you try. I have, you know, I like my meat cooked well done." The dragon then took a great breath and Orochimaru recognized what he was about to do and made a cut of blood. Kuchio's no Jutsu. Triple Rashomon. He then summoned 3 gates shaped like demons in front of him just as Sorosh let loose a powerful wave of flame from his mouth. The flames struck the barrier gates and Orochimaru could feel the burning heat as sweat poured down his brow. Sorosh continued pouring out flames attempting to destroy the gates, and then they started to burn as even they could not withstand the heat of the blaze which threatened to burn him. Finally, just when it appeared that he would be burned to a crisp, the flames ended, just narrowly dying out before he would be burnt. Sorosh lowered his head trying to regain his strength from the attack. Orochimaru then saw an opening and went to attack. Pulling out his sword he charged and stabbed the beast. Yet he saw to his surprise the blade having no effect on it. He then leapt away before he could be striked. His blade wasn't able to pierce its thick hide. Fool! My stomach and chest area cannot be damaged by your weapons. My skin is coated in magnificent thick armor able to withstand the most powerful blows as if they were nothing. When I was young and tender you could beat me, but now that I am old and wise I have been gifted with this. Take a look. He then raised up all the way nearly standing on both feet 30 feet tall, showing his shining red armor to him. He was covered all the way up to his head in thick scaly armor that would protect him. Except for one part, Orochimaru noticed, a small barely noticeable area near its chest was duller than the rest. The rest of it shined, but that one spot didn't, it was dull. An idea, perhaps a last-ditch one, formed inside Orochimaru's head. Let this work, he murmured as he drew his sword and opened his mouth, letting his tongue fall out. The tongue then became a snake which then swallowed the blade. He had to time this perfectly. One mistake and he was dead. Now then, human, burn. Sorosh took another deep breath and prepared to let loose another burst of flame when to his surprise his foe leapt up and he then saw him grin evilly and opened his mouth, and suddenly a snake came out of it and with it a sword. Before he could even think about incinerating his foe or moving, he could only watch as the sword plunged straight into his chest and went right past the lone chink of armor that he had. The dragon then felt, for perhaps the first time in his life, severe pain. That little sword the man had used had pierced his heart. Sorosh let out a roar of denial and pain as it dug into his chest, lodged in too deeply for him to get out. He had been too arrogant. He had foolishly shown the lone weak spot he had in his entire body. And now he had paid the price for his folly. Sorosh tumbled like a tree in the woods and hit the ground with a loud thud as his red eyes turned dark. He let out one last cry of defiance and the great beast exited the world of the living and went into the world of the dead. Orochimaru grimaced and went over and pulled out his sword. It was lodged in deep, and when he pulled it out the entire blade was covered in blood. He stared at the once mighty creature and smirked. Correction, Sorosh. Although we humans are arrogant, at least we use our brains more than beasts of burden. He then heard a door being opened and he walked over to it and went up the stairs. He soon found himself back where he was in front of the leader of the group. Very impressive. I never thought I would witness the day Sorosh would meet the one who would kill him. You live up to your status, Orochimaru, as a legendary ninja. The snake Sanin smirked. I try to fulfill people's expectations that they have of me. The leader turned to the woman beside him. Conan, give him the uniform, he is now the newest member of Akatsuki. Anime and manga. The woman handed him a coat similar to the ones they wore and he took it. While he was looking at her, Orochimaru noticed that there was something similar about her that he couldn't place. We shall assign you a partner soon. I expect you to live up to the hype that you have, Orochimaru, said the leader to him. Time passed for Orochimaru during his first year in Akatsuki. Soon he was given a partner, Sasori of the village of Sand. At first the two thought little of the other, but as time grew they began to respect each other. Sasori with his mastery of puppets and Orochimaru who was adept at all sorts of jutsu made the duo a formidable team. The two had respect for each other as neither prodded into the other's past. Though not all of the group's members he was fond of. Kisame Hoshigaki, a shark-like swordsman from Mist who had a nasty side to him, joined a couple of months after he did, and immediately the two disliked each other. Kisame with his sadist side wanted to kill him, and the same could be said for Orochimaru as he was disgusted by the shark man and wanted him dead. Though the two could wait until they accomplished their goal, there was little doubt among the group that they would someday come to blows with each other and one of them would die. Orochimaru learned how Akatsuki intended to conquer the world. First they would capture the demons and seal them. Second, they had a mercenary-like army that only followed them. Once they had all of them, they would release them into villages and have them cause as much destruction as possible. Then, Appearing as mercenaries, they would offer to defeat and capture the beasts for a high price. They would capture the demons and be hailed as heroes for doing so. Finally, after all major countries had had their budgets drained, they would attack and easily conquer them. The rest of the countries would try to resist, but they would have little chance against them. The group was yet to be formed as a whole, and the leader wanted a low profile, so he forbid them from attacking any of the villages that had a vessel. Yet they would have trouble containing the beasts. Even though the leader's plan was good, there was that trouble. Fortunately for them, Orochimaru found a solution to that. He was able to create 10 rings, each with a different symbol on them. These rings were very important, as not only would they allow the members to communicate with each other, but they could also speed up the process of extracting and sealing the beasts. This brought him into the leader's favor, which irritated some of the others, especially Kisame. And as protection, Orochimaru made his ring stronger than the rest. Without his, the process would take 3 days to do so. But with it, it would take a couple of hours to do so. Even though he appeared calm and collected and was unsuspected of doing anything, inside his heart was aching with each passing day. Thoughts of his son went through his mind quite often. He wasn't sure what was happening to his child, yet he suspected he wasn't being treated nicely by those good-for-nothing bastards of Konoha. The only reason he joined the group was so that once he could get the chance, he could get his son out of there and take him away. He was not going to stand by and let them harm his son. Resting in a minor village one day along with Sasori, he then found something interesting. Today was October the 8th, and if he remembered correctly, the 10th would be the 1-year anniversary of the Kyuubi's attack. But more importantly, it would be Naruto's first birthday. It's been a year already. Feels much longer. He then decided right there and now, he had to see his son. He had to make sure he was alive. Leaving Sasori by himself, he exited the village and made his way to Konoha as fast as his feet could carry him. It took him 2 days to get there, and when he arrived it was nightfall. He overlooked Konoha standing over a cliff. Most of it had been rebuilt, yet the damage was still there. Faintly, he could hear music being played. Apparently there was a festival being held in honor of the Yondaimes and his sacrifice. This of course made him sick to his stomach. Instead of honoring that fool of a ninja, they should be happy they're alive thanks to my son, and instead of honoring him they will treat him like trash. He quickly made his way to the gates and managed to sneak in. The guards weren't on duty, probably attending the festival and getting drunk, so it was easy to do so. He waded in among the people who, despite the festive mood, most people wear sad. He threw a hood over his body covering himself and went into the main part of the village. Anko, who was at the festival, felt someone brush against her. Ignoring it, she then felt a familiar feeling inside her. She turned around, her eyes scanning the area. For a moment she had thought that her former sensei was here. Thinking it was just her mind playing tricks on her since it had been a year ago when she last saw him, she turned around unaware of her teacher heading in the opposite direction. Orochimaru quietly made his way through, avoiding Anbu and groups of people until he finally came to the place he was looking for. In Konoha, if a child lost his parents but was part of a clan like the Uchiha or Hyuga, he would be adopted back into the clan. But if he didn't have any living relatives, would have to go the orphanage. And there until he became old enough he would live there. Anime and manga. Rarely did people ever adopt in Konoha. Sure, civilians might adopt a child as their own, but unless a child had a rare bloodline they were often ignored by clans and such, thinking them unworthy. He himself had lived here shortly after his parents died until he was able to get his own place. And the place didn't bring back fond memories. Although the place was well funded, the children often had poor meals and were mistreated here. It was sad to see a young child lose the happiness in his eyes having to live here. Once they were allowed to enter the academy, They were given an apartment, but usually a poor one, and limited amount of money to spend each week on food and such. He quietly made his way through the place. Most of the children were asleep and the owners weren't here. He soon came to a room where the youngest children were put. Entering the room, he saw a crib far at the end of the room, and he knew that was where Naruto would be. He made his way softly through the room and to the crib and peered inside. Despite the different look that he had, a genjutsu no doubt, Orochimaru knew that the child in the crib was his son. Naruto laid on the crib wearing a light blue shirt and a diaper. A ragged blanket covered him, barely able to cover himself from the cold. The boy shivered at times, and it tore Orochimaru apart to see his son being treated this way. Suddenly the boy woke up, and for the first time father and son meet face to face. His blue eyes, looking so much like Kushina's, stared into his golden eyes. The child, unsure of what to make of him but feeling something familiar about him, reached out his tiny hand trying to reach him. Orochimaru took it and reached into the crib and picked him up. He pressed Naruto against his chest, holding his son close to him. The boy wrapped his arms around him, holding onto him. Orochimaru felt happiness inside himself for the first time in a long time. He sat in a chair that the room had and began rocking his son, making sure to be quiet so he wouldn't awaken anyone else. Listening to his son's breathing and running his fingers through his hair. The boy seemed to have a liking for his hair as he held onto it and shook it like a rattle. Orochimaru then noticed that Naruto was wet and also dirty. Frowning, Orochimaru stood up, holding him in his arms. The boy was a real mess, more signs of neglect on their part. If he remembered, there was a cleaning area that was used nearby. He found a door and unlocked it. Peering inside, he found supplies for him to use. Getting a rag, a bowl of water, some wipes, and a diaper. He sat Naruto down on a counter and removed his clothing. Dipping the rag into the bowl, he then began to wipe the dirt and grime off of his body. A laugh escaped Naruto at the feeling of the water, and Orochimaru couldn't help but grin at his son. After removing the dirt and grime, he then used the wipes to clean his waist from him so he wouldn't get sick. He then strapped the diaper onto him. He then picked his son up and carried him back into the room. It was getting late and Naruto began yawning, getting ready to go back to sleep. Orochimaru realized that he would have to leave soon and his son behind as well. He placed him back in his crib and put a new blanket around him to keep him warm. At this point, Naruto had fallen asleep. Growing up, 7-year-old Naruto always felt different than everybody else. He didn't know what, yet he was always treated differently than everyone else. How often did he try to befriend someone only for them to tell him to stay away from them? Or whenever he attempted to befriend those of his age, did their parents come and take them away and threatened him to stay away from them? He had recently joined the academy that Konoha had, although he had to spend most of his time alone as the instructors there didn't help him, and most of the students didn't bother talking to him, seeing how they would get in trouble if they did. They all seemed to fawn over the Uchiha kid Sasuke or the Hyuga boy Neji. They never really spent time helping those that needed it. There was also the fact that whenever he was walking around Konoha, that people would throw rocks at him. Sometimes they would throw rotten food at him as well. He had asked them why they always treated him so bad, yet they would only insult him and throw objects at him. He wished he could go one day without nobody hurting him. One thing that Naruto wanted more than anything though was a father. He was envious of all the other kids seeing them with their dads. He had seen Shikamaru and his dad taking a nap in the park. How Choji's dad would take him out to eat. Watching Ino and her father picking flowers. Or when Tenten's father gave her her first shuriken. He wanted his own father too, someone to care for him and to set an example for him. He had no idea who his parents were, When he was allowed to the library, he would always try to see if there was anyone with the name of Uzumaki, but there wasn't. The only person like family was the kunoichi Anko, who was sorta like a sister to him. The other person was the sandame who he had met a couple of times before. Hearing his stomach growl, Naruto placed his hands on his belly. Might as well get something to eat, no point in wandering on an empty stomach. Getting some money that was given to him by the village every week, he then left his apartment. He had left the orphanage when he had gotten old enough and lived in an apartment. It wasn't much, but at least it was livable. Heading outside, he began to walk through Konoha. Secretly, he hoped that no one would bother him on the way to the Ichiraku ramen bar. It was pretty much the only place he could go, as the old man and his daughter Ayame liked him. Sure, ramen was cheap and easy to make, but at times he wished he didn't have to eat the same kind of food every day. He carefully made his way to the ramen bar, avoiding people, and a smile formed on his face as he neared it. Looks like he wouldn't have any trouble after all. Whack! Suddenly something hit him in the back of the head, which caused him to fall to the ground. He winced and rubbed it in annoyance. He then saw a rock which had hit him. "What do you think you're doing, brat?" demanded a man who appeared. He had a mean personality and was often one of the people who would torment him. He reached down and picked Naruto up by the back of his neck, dangling him in the air. "Ah, let me go, you big jerk!" shouted Naruto, squirming in his grasp, trying to break free to no avail. He was then struck in the stomach by the man. "Quiet, you little maggot!" shouted the man, who began squeezing down on his throat. Naruto cried out in pain as the man clamped down, choking him. "Leave him alone." A kunai whizzed through the air and struck the man in the back. He dropped Naruto and reached towards his back in pain. He went to turn around but was suddenly struck across the body and he was knocked out. Naruto looked up at the person who had saved him. Her purple hair flowing in the wind, she looked down at him, a frown on her face. "Can't keep out of trouble, can you, Naruto?" asked Anko to him, which made him frown. "It wasn't my fault. I was just going to go eat when that jerk tried to beat me up," he said to her. Anko went to run her fingers through his hair, yet he backed away from her. "Why do people here always gotta treat me so badly? I've done nothing to them, yet they always act like jerks to me. I'm just a kid," he asked her, staring up into her eyes. "I can't say, Naruto. People here are jerks at times. Now come on, let's get something to eat. My treat." "No." Naruto then unexpectedly ran off in the opposite direction, leaving Anko behind, not caring where he was going. On a rooftop of one of the buildings of Konoha, the figure sighed as he watched what had just happened. Not for the first time, he had to restrain himself from going down there and killing the man who had harmed his son. He wanted nothing more than to go down there and rescue his child, who was forced to endure such treatment. Every couple of months, Orochimaru had secretly been going to Konoha to watch over his son and see how he was doing. He had watched the boy grow in the past 5 years. Forced to at his young age endure such horrible treatment by those good-for-nothing villagers who believed themselves better than everyone else. Watching over his son like a guardian angel, he had wanted nothing more than to go down there and kill each and every one of those bastards who had harmed his son. And the Anbu of the village didn't make things better. Sure, when he was being chased by a mob, they would come and force them to head back to their homes and leave him alone, but only after they had harmed him enough. Except for his former student, which surprised him to see her look after the boy, none of them, it seemed, even bothered trying to stop them from hurting him. Naruto needed more protection from them, someone who could look after him and teach him how to defend himself. He knew the pain Naruto was feeling growing up, and he felt it as well between the father and son bond between them. Just then an idea went into his head. If he remembered correctly, there was someone here who could help look after him. He would be a leaf nin, yes, but he had loyalty to him and was strong. Stealthily making his way to the training grounds, he discovered the person he was looking for. He had silver gray hair and wore glasses. And he appeared to be around 15 years of age. A leaf Hittite was strapped across his forehead and he was currently looking at a medical book. Kabuto, Kabuto, Orochimaru called out to him quietly. The boy looked up from his book hearing the voice and turned around and saw him. Orochimaru-sama, he asked, a bit surprised to see him. The snake Sanin moved out of the woods and into the clearing. I thought you were dead, you've disappeared ever since the Kyuubi attack. He said to him. Easy Kabuto, calm down, I have something for you to do. What is it, sir? Asked Kabuto, kneeling. I need you to look after the child Naruto Uzumaki. The Kyuubi child. Why do you want me to look after him? He is my son, and I'm sure you have witnessed the treatment he has gotten from those maggots. Kabuto looked at him, shocked at that. The Kyuubi child was his son. But they looked nothing alike. Then it all dawned on him. He remembered how 6 years ago how the man before him had acted different than he usually did. He seemed like he was happy now, although he couldn't tell exactly what it was. And he was spending time with the Uzumaki woman. Then came the attack of the fox demon and Orochimaru disappeared. But how, sir? He looks nothing like you. Orochimaru waved that away. A genjutsu casted on him to hide his true features. No doubt put on him so people would think he's the son of that miserable fool of a ninja Minato. Naruto is my son and I was forced to watch as Minato sealed Kyuubi inside him. I vowed that one day that I would return and recover my son, but I can't do it yet. And I'm sure you have seen how the ungrateful bastards have treated him. I need you to look after him and befriend him and help him out, give him some training so that he'll be able to defend himself. I have seen what has happened to him and I fear that he'll be scarred for life if this keeps up. Can I count on you, Kabuto, to look after him, not as an order but as a request? Hi Orochimaru-sama, responded Kabuto. He had no ill feelings towards the boy. At times he pitied the child, seeing how he was treated by the villagers. And he had respect for Orochimaru. He would look after the child. Good. Every 2 months I'll be outside the gates of Konoha expecting a report from you. I'm hoping soon that I'll be able to get him. For now, watch over him. Hi Orochimaru. Oh, by the way, it seems that there is trouble going on in the Uchiha clan. Oh, yes. One of their members was found dead. It appeared as if he drowned himself. Though there has been suspicions pointed at Itachi Uchiha. It seems as if he will be arrested and questioned soon. There's talk that he was the one who killed him. I figured that would be something you'd be interested in. Orochimaru mused over that. The Uchiha clan next to the Hyuga was the most powerful clan in Konoha. This could be devastating to the clan itself. He kept that locked away in his mind. For now it didn't concern him. Very well then, Kabuto, I'll come back in 2 months for a report. Watch over Naruto. He then disappeared in a whirl of leaves, leaving Kabuto behind. Anko looked all over for Naruto. She was looking for the boy yet was unable to find him. She feared he might have gotten attacked again or worse. She had become rather fond of the boy ever since she told Sarutobi that she would look after him even though he was the son of her former sensei. She walked through the village and outside of it and eventually discovered him. He was sitting down near a pond looking at his reflection in the water. His blue eyes stared into himself. Anko watched him from afar, wondering what he was up to. She then noticed that a frown appeared on his face. He hit the water, causing the reflection to disappear. He then reached into the water and splashed himself across the face, putting mud over himself. He seemed to be focused on the marks on his face as if he was trying to cover them up. Seeing enough, Anko stepped forward. Naruto. Hearing her voice, he turned around, not bothering to clean up the mud. What are you doing here, Anko-chan? Watching you make a mess. What's gotten into you? She responded as she came forward and kneeled so they could look at each other face to face. Why am I so different? How come everybody treats me badly? They are always calling me monster and freak. What did I ever do to them? Naruto. Anko-chan, you've seen how those jerks treat me. I'm always being treated badly by them. Why do they do that? They say I don't belong in Konoha. They just don't understand Naruto. That's the problem, they don't understand how you're the same as them. What do you mean? Here, let me show you. She wiped the mud off of the boy's face and sat him on her lap. She then placed a finger on his nose. What is this? It's my nose. He responded dryly. Right. Like everyone else, you have a nose, also you have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and a mouth. 10 fingers, some hair, and a face just like everyone else does. What's that got to do with anything? He asked her, not understanding what she was talking about. It means that you have the same things that everyone else has. Here, listen carefully. She pressed his head against her chest. What do you hear? Your heartbeat. Right. Now what do you hear? She laid his hand against his own chest and he could hear the beating of his own heart. My heart. Anko nodded and took his hands in hers and brought them up together as the two looked each other in the eyes. See, even though people may think you're different than them, you're exactly the same as they are. They just can't see that. Naruto removed himself from her up and stood up. Well then, I'll make them see it. I'll become the greatest ninja ever. I'll become the next Hokage. Anko smirked. Hokage. Well, last I checked they didn't give it to anyone. But if you put your mind to it and nearly kill yourself, and with a little luck, you might do it. Naruto smiled. I will. I'll be the greatest Hokage ever. 1 month later, Orochimaru swung his sword in a vertical angle which narrowly missed his target. His target that he aimed for then disappeared, but Orochimaru was expecting that. Listening carefully, he was able to hear the soft pad of footsteps, and he then made hand seals and 2 snakes appeared and he had them attack what appeared to be a giant rock. The rock, after being attacked, disappeared and turned back into his foe. His foe, what appeared to be a cross between a man and a dog with 2 tails sticking out of him, was the vessel of the 5-tailed demon and the one he was supposed to catch for Akatsuki. It was adept in 5 elements and also a master at illusions. He had discovered him in a small village in stone and the two were now fighting. It had been a long week for him. He had discovered the vessel and challenged it. The vessel had casted an illusion and disappeared. Orochimaru and Sasori had to chase after it before it could get away. Once they found it, they engaged in a brief scuffle with it before it casted another illusion. It had kept this up, but now with its energy being drained from always being on the run, they could finally face it without it being able to cast an illusion and defeat it. The ninja let out a stream of mist from his mouth covering the field. Orochimaru, used to such tricks, didn't attempt anything as he waited patiently. He let his guard down nonchalantly and waited for the foe to strike first. A fireball appeared out of the mist aiming right at him. Orochimaru saw it coming but didn't even bother to move as he was engulfed by it. The dog vessel, seeing him engulfed, believed him to be dead, dispelled the mist, but saw to his surprise that there was just skin left. As if he had shedded it like a snake does its own skin. He then heard the sound of a sword being drawn. He moved out of the way at the last instant, barely able to dodge the blow at the last second. He smirked, thinking that he had regained the advantage. But he did not see the scorpion that was ready to surface, its stinger ready. The tail stabbed him in the back, sending in its deadly poison, slowly making him lose control and making him fade into unconsciousness as he fell to the ground, his features turning back to normal. Orochimaru, seeing that the battle was over, summoned a snake and had it take his sword back. I was doing fine, I didn't need your help, Sasori. The missing nin from Suna looked up from his puppet outfit and nodded. I was growing tired of watching this, The target has been neutralized and now we have to take him back. The leader will be most pleased. Our first demon, now we only need 8. Not unless the poison kills him before we can extract it from him. Your poison takes 3 days to kill its target. Contact the leader while I bind him and tell him that we have it and it'll be ready for extractment. Fortunately there's a base not too far away from here that we can use for it. Sasori contacted the leader and informed him of their success in getting the 5-tailed demon vessel while Orochimaru binded the unconscious ninja. They were then told to head to the base so they could begin the extraction while the other members were gathered. Soon the two with their captive came to the hidden base which was located next to a cliff. Opening the secret doorway, the two came to a chamber where the holographic figure of the leader awaited. "Do you have it?" he asked them eagerly. Orochimaru nodded and walked forward and dropped the vessel in front of him. The leader's eyes gleamed looking at it and nodded. "Good. We are one step closer now. The others will soon arrive." Surely enough, the other members appeared. Zetsu, Kisame, Hidan, Kakuzu, Konan, and an unexpected new person appeared as well. Orochimaru couldn't see anything of him as he had a hood covering his entire head, hiding himself from peering eyes. "Who is that?" Orochimaru asked the leader, who shrugged and waved it away. "Our newest member. He shall reveal himself after we are done with this. Now then, let's begin." The leader then began the symbols needed for it. Fuin Jutsu. Genryu Q Fujin. In the center of the chamber, the ceiling statue appeared, summoned by him. Each member then leapt onto it and got on the finger which corresponded to their specific ring finger. For Orochimaru, it was his left little finger which symbolized the void. "Now each of you concentrate, and let us extract the demon from him," ordered the leader to them. Each member began concentrating hard. The kanji of their rings then began to appear on the nail of the finger they stood on. None of the members wavered as they concentrated, keeping it up. After a couple hours had passed, 9 dragon-like beings appeared and swarmed themselves around the host. They then began the process of forcefully extracting the beast from him. They removed the 5-tailed dog from him and sealed it inside the statue. The process was now complete. Each member reopened their eyes and a grin appeared on the leader's face. "Excellent. We are one step closer to completing our goal. All we need now is 8 more. Good work, Orochimaru and Sasori. At least you two are able to work together without killing each other." Orochimaru did a mock bow in gratitude. "Enough of this, sir. Who is this new guy? What's he doing here?" ordered Kisame. The hooded figure reached up and began to remove his hood as the leader answered. "Very well, Kisame. Allow me to introduce you to your partner and the newest member of Akatsuki." The figure finished with his hood dropped it, revealing his eyes which had lines down through them and black hair. He also had a leaf hitai which he wore, which had a scar crossed through it, signifying himself as a missing nin. And his eyes which were red, the Sharingan eyes. It usually took a lot to surprise Orochimaru, and this was one of the few times where he was surprised. Uchiha Itachi. An Uchiha had joined the group. That wasn't possible. The Uchiha clan often kept a close eye on its members. Granted, they never did anything like the Hyuga clan would, such as putting a cursed seal on their members, but very rarely did a Uchiha with the Sharingan leave his clan. This was interesting, and he then remembered what it was Kabuto had told him. There was talk of how one of their members had been killed, as if he had killed himself. But then came evidence and it was pointing at Itachi as the one who had killed him. It didn't make any sense for Orochimaru. He had seen the boy and he had his Sharingan eyes. Usually a traitor to the clan would have his Sharingan extracted from him so that he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. Yet Itachi had his and appeared to be fine. Something was up here and he was determined to find out what. Telling Sasori that he would meet back up with him in a couple days, Orochimaru headed towards the Akatsuki hideout wanting to figure out the mystery of Itachi. At Konoha. Hold still Naruto, I can't get this cleaned and disinfected if you keep on struggling, said Kabuto Yakushi as he was tending to the blonde boy. Naruto had gotten a cut on his arm practicing with a kunai and Kabuto had been trying to get it cleaned. Naruto had met Kabuto about a month ago after he had rescued the boy from a mob that had chased after him. At first the boy was suspicious of him, thinking he was going to trick him since he had never met the medic boy before, but Kabuto had done no such thing. Flashback. Who are you? Asked the 7-year-old blonde boy to the silver-haired teenager in front of him. He had been running from another mob and it appeared that he wouldn't get away when he was suddenly grabbed and pulled into an alleyway. The person who had grabbed him put a finger to his lips mentioning to keep quiet as they stayed hidden. Soon the crowd, unable to find the boy, left in disappointment and the two appeared out of the alleyway. Well, that was close. Are you all right? The figure asked him. The boy backed away and looked up at him. Don't worry, I'm not going to harm you, he said, holding up his hands indicating he was friendly. Who are you? Naruto asked him again. Anime and manga. I'm Kabuto. I'm a leaf nin. I've been watching you, Naruto. And when I saw you being chased towards here by those fools, I decided that enough was enough and decided to spoil their fun. You're not going to hurt me. Not unless you want me to. Come on, let's get out of here. Back to normal. Naruto had found another person who didn't pick on him or treat him badly. At first he was suspicious that he was being tricked by him, but Kabuto had done nothing that would indicate that he would. He seemed to actually like him and gave him some help when he needed it at the academy. Anko didn't appear to like him though and mistrusted him, thinking he was up to something or that he was just using Naruto. Kabuto had given Naruto some training, teaching him about the body and where exactly he should strike out. Naruto was grateful for Kabuto for helping him and was an eager learner, always wanting to learn more. He usually didn't get much help at the academy as they only seemed to care about the Uchiha boy, saying how bright and much of a prodigy he was while ignoring most of the other students. Naruto had no ill feelings towards the boy, but come on, he wasn't that great. They're all done, said Kabuto as he was done with the wound and applied a bandage to it. Thanks, Kabuto-san. Hey, Kabuto-san. Can you answer my question? Kabuto looked down at him, a smirk on his face. Sure, Naruto. Depends on your question. I'll answer it. Anime and manga. Naruto looked up at him, hoping that he could answer him. Do you know anything about my parents? I've been wanting to know about them, yet I can't find anything about them. I was hoping you would know something about them. Kabuto mused over that unexpected question and knew he probably had to answer carefully. It wouldn't do him much good if he told Naruto the truth about his mother and father, how his father was one of the most feared ninjas of all time, so he had to tell him something that would settle the boy. I don't know much about them, but your mother was a kunoichi from the village once known as Whirlpool. She was a fiery character. She could intimidate even the most staunch of men and would often have men tremble thinking of her not only as an enemy, but as a potential mate. You've gotten your eye color from her. She died when she gave birth to you. I'm sorry you had to learn that just now. Naruto looked saddened at that and for a moment wished he didn't ask him about his parents. What about my dad? Kabuto continued on. Your father was once a powerful and highly ranked leaf nin of Konoha. He was one of the most feared men ever, yet he was capable of showing good inside him to those he cared about. He was a genius, a brilliant ninja who was once considered for the spot of Hokage. Yet his views were misguided at times and he made bad decisions until he met your mother. Where is he? Kabuto stayed quiet and didn't answer. Kabuto-san. He disappeared the day you were born. No one knows what happened to him. Not one person of Konoha has ever seen him ever since then. That is all I know of your parents. Naruto stared down at the ground, regretting that he asked about his parents. He kinda wished he hadn't had done that, cause even though he wanted to know about his parents, he was hoping it wouldn't be like that. He absent-mindedly wiped a tear away that was going down his face. He then felt a comforting hand placed on his shoulder. Hey, it's alright. They're proud of you by the fact that you're alive and living, and would be upset if they saw their son crying. By growing and becoming a ninja, you would honor them, comforted Kabuto gently to the boy. Naruto, seeing that he was right, dried his eyes and his face hardened in determination. At a megacure, Orochimaru headed through the entrance gates undetected as he made his way through the village as quick as he could. A couple of days had passed since the first extractment, and he was hoping he would find the person he was looking for. He found the person standing over a bridge, his face blank. Hearing his footsteps, he turned, and for the first time, Orochimaru and Itachi meet face to face. So, you are the newest member of Akatsuki? That I am, and like you, I am a missing nin from Leaf. Perhaps, but that is where our similarities end. Tell me, Itachi, is it? How were you able to leave Konoha with your Sharingan eyes intact? Frankly, I'm impressed with the fact that you are even here. What task did you take so you could join? Itachi remained quiet. It was simple. All I did was wipe out the entire Uchiha clan. Anime and manga. Orochimaru's eyes widened at that, and he figured him to be bluffing. Impossible. No one, certainly not a boy who's barely over 15, could wipe out the most powerful clan in Konoha. Itachi shrugged. Suit yourself, but I did it. I killed them all, even my own parents. The only one I left alive was my little brother, though if he wasn't at the academy when I did it, I probably would have killed him as well. They are all dead. Orochimaru snarled. How could you possibly kill all of them without no one knowing it? Not even I, a Sannin, could possibly do such a thing. With a new trick I have learned. Now if you excuse me, I have to go. The leader wants me to fetch a terrorist from Iowa. He believes he'll be of use to Akatsuki. He went to walk past him when Orochimaru grasped him by the shoulder when he passed him. Hold on a minute, I have one last question for you. I'm sure you know that we seek the tailed beasts. Which one is it that you are assigned to get? Itachi turned his head to look at him and responded. Why, the one that's inside your son, of course. That startled Orochimaru, and the grip he had on his shoulder loosened. What are you talking about? I have no son. Oh, then who is the father of Uzumaki Naruto? It is not the former Hokage Namikaze Minato like the Sandaime told everyone else. I know who his true father is, and I'm sure he would look like you if he didn't have that genjutsu on him. Orochimaru growled and began to lose his temper as Itachi went on. You impregnated the Uzumaki woman, did you not? Was you going to use the child as a weapon for your own means? You were known for your experiments, and most expected that you would use your own son to do so. I'm surprised that I found you here. Did you leave Konoha because you hated your son as well for having the Kyuubi? Some father you are. I wonder what will happen when you two meet when I bring him in. It'll be the first and last time you'd meet, cause he'll die when the Kyuubi is extracted from him. Enough! Shouted Orochimaru in rage as he threw him. Itachi did a flip in the air and landed on his feet. A scowl formed on Orochimaru's features as he glared at him. I did not leave Konoha because I hated my son. Far from it. I love my son and was forced to witness as that damn fox was sealed inside him when he was just born. I joined this miserable group because I knew I could be able to get him and take him away from there and be able to raise him. I will not let you, Akatsuki, or anyone else harm him. Itachi stood there impassively. Very well. I shall have to kill you then, traitor. Orochimaru charged him and struck him across the face. Itachi went to hit him, but he blocked the attack. He then made hand symbols and blew Itachi away with a powerful gust of wind. Itachi regained his footing on the bridge and made hand symbols of his own. He sent a great fireball right at Orochimaru. Although it was bigger and moved slower than the usual fireball did, Orochimaru could tell it was much more powerful. He leapt out of the as it struck the bridge they were fighting on and destroyed part of it. He was then unexpectedly struck from behind and knocked down. He picked himself up and saw Itachi make a clone of himself. Not to be outdone and seeing a bit of mud nearby, Orochimaru scooped it up and made a copy of himself out of it to battle Itachi's clone. The two clones battled each other at the command of their users. Just when it appeared Orochimaru's gotten the upper hand against Itachi's, it wrapped itself around it and self-destructed, killing them both. Orochimaru and Itachi then continued fighting. Each countered jutsu after jutsu used by the other, though it appeared that Orochimaru had the edge and would soon defeat him. Though Itachi didn't panic one bit, it appeared Orochimaru struck him across the face and sent him skidding to a stop at the edge of the bridge. Seeing an opening, Orochimaru summoned Kusanagi and leapt up prepared to end it, planning on stabbing Itachi through the heart with his blade. Just when it appeared he would do it, Itachi's hands shot up and caught the blade a mere inch before it went through his heart. The two were then caught in a struggle as Orochimaru attempted to push it through his heart while Itachi tried to stop it from killing him. Just when it appeared that Orochimaru was going to win, something happened to Itachi's eyes. They changed from the normal Sharingan eyes. Orochimaru then found himself in a different setting. The sky was red and the area was bare and broken. He was wondering where in the world he was when he found himself unable to move and that he was pressed against a cross. Struggle all he could not move. Itachi appeared in front of him. Welcome to the place where I rule over both time and space. What is this place? How did I get here? This is Tsukuyomi. As for how you got here, I activated my Mangekyo Sharingan and took us here. And as you can see, there is nothing you can do. Orochimaru struggled but found himself no matter how hard he tried to not move. In this realm time passes much different here. In the real world seconds could pass whilst days and weeks would pass here. Now then allow me to show you what I can do here. Orochimaru then saw an infant wrapped in a bundle against the ground. He then recognized it as Naruto. And suddenly stepping into view before him was Kyuubi. He could also see himself being held back by his former teammates. The fox growled and Orochimaru watched as Kyuubi disappeared inside Naruto. In this realm I rule, I can make you witness anything I want you to see. And since this memory seems to have an effect on you, I'll let you relive this event over and over again. Said Itachi to him who vanished. Orochimaru could only look on in horror as he was forced to endure watching Kyuubi sealed into his son helplessly again and again. Each time more painful to watch than the last. There was nothing he could do as he was helpless to do anything. After what seemed like the 100th time he was forced to watch it, he found himself on his knees back in aim with Itachi standing over him. He couldn't do anything but stare blankly after what he had to witness. See, that is the power of the Uchiha clan, killing my own best friend to obtain it. I tested it out against my family and it worked quite well. And now I know how powerful it is, judging by you. Orochimaru turned his head to look at him and then with his last ounce of strength threw a punch. Itachi blocked and countered it easily with one hand and pressed his other hand against Orochimaru's stomach. Begone! He shouted as his hand became engulfed in flames, and he then struck him with a powerful blow, burning through the robe and scorching his side, knocking him away and off the bridge and into the raging water below. Itachi walked towards it and looked into the water, seeing if he had survived. Seeing no sign of him, he then turned away and headed back, getting ready to report to the leader. Elsewhere, the raging water exiting out of the village of Rain and nearing a swampland began to get calmer. A bird circling from above dropped down carefully and keeping an eye out for predators began to drink from the murky water. Suddenly a pale hand shot out of the water, terrifying the bird into flight. Grabbing a hold of a plant nearby, a figure emerged from the water. Suddenly it dawned on him as he remembered where he was. This area, the land he was in, which was a couple days away from Konoha, was known as the Land of Rice. He remembered seeing some of their nin before in the Chunin exams before he left. They didn't last very far into it, with only one team making it past the Forest of Death stage and all of them defeated in the mini-tournament stage. Rice was a relatively weak country, as they were barely known. Though at one time it was a strong country and nearly threatened Konoha, but due to an unforeseen accident which blew up part of the village, it wasn't well known and its ninjas lesser known as well. His curiosity intrigued, he then started to make his way towards the village of Rice, wondering how the country was doing. It might be of some use to him. At Konoha, Naruto sat in his room at his apartment working over a piece of paper. He was paying extra attention to the detail, making sure he got everything right. If he made a mistake or if he found something he didn't like, he would tear it apart and threw it in the trash and then work on a new paper trying to get it right. He had been working on it for the past couple of days when he wasn't at the academy or walking around Konoha, as he wanted to finish this. He then suddenly heard his door being opened. He turned around thinking it might have been an angry villager barging into his home, but to his relief it was just Kabuto checking up on the boy. "Working hard as always," said Kabuto with a smirk as he went over to the boy. "Hi Kabuto-san, what are you doing here?" asked Naruto to him as he went back to his work. "Not much, was in the neighborhood and decided to check on you. I've heard you've been having trouble at the academy." Naruto nodded. "It's pretty hard there. The people there don't help out very often, they all seem to be obsessed with that Sasuke kid. He's not that great." Kabuto shrugged. "Don't worry about it. Besides, you don't need to get in trouble with the Uchiha. He is the last of his clan and you'd have 100 people after you if you said that out loud." Naruto nodded. "I know, it's just that everyone thinks that I'm an idiot. I'm pretty smart, yet they all act like they are better than me. I know a lot and I study often due to Anko-chan drilling me to not slack off, yet everyone treats me like garbage." Kabuto patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry about it. They'll regret once you've become a ninja and show everyone how smart you really are. What are you working on anyway?" Naruto grinned and showed him what he was doing. Kabuto couldn't help but smirk at it. It was a drawing that Naruto had done. He had used crayons to draw 3 people. They were rather crudely drawn as the boy was no artist but put a lot of work into it. The 3 people, a male, a female, and a child who looked like Naruto. The female had red hair and blue eyes and had an arm on the boy. And the male had long black hair and yellow eyes, and the 3 were holding hands and each of them seemed happy. Kabuto had to stop himself from laughing at the picture. "Who are they, Naruto?" "They're my parents. You told me about my parents, so I decided to draw them. I think this is what they would look like." Kabuto looked at the picture and grinned. He couldn't imagine the boy's father looking as happy as he did in the picture, but it was a fun image to have. He wondered what he would have thought of this picture drawn of him by his son. "Well, I'm going to go now, Naruto. Take care." Kabuto began to leave the room, heading towards the door. On the way out, he noticed Naruto get up and head to the bathroom. Seeing his chance, he headed back towards the desk. Carefully picking up the picture, he folded it in half and hid it inside his clothing. He then left the building before Naruto got out, taking the picture with him. At the village of Rice, Orochimaru looked over the village as he walked through it. It was not what he was expecting. Most of the buildings were in sad shape. The people here, even the few ninjas that was around, had a dejected air around them, as if they didn't care anymore. He didn't have any trouble getting in and the guards didn't even bother questioning him. Walking around, he looked over the people who stared back at him. Most of them were malnourished and poorly fed. It seemed as if they clothes barely hung onto them, most of them were so thin. They were few stores and most of the stocks were ill supplied. Apparently rice had had a bad year in crops. Looking at their wares he noticed that most of what they had was just rice, as it was all most people could afford. Those who were ninjas seemed to be better off, but not by much. They were better fed and more nourished, yet they seemed to have no hope around them. Suddenly something brushed against him. He saw a young girl with orange hair run past him, and in her hands was a bag that contained his money. He chased after the girl, who attempted to hide into an alleyway, but he managed to get a hold of her before she could away. "Let me go." She struggled in his grasp, but a smack across her ear told her to quit struggling. "You have something that belongs to me," he said sternly to her. The girl looked up at his golden eyes and slowly held out the pouch of money she had taken from him. He took it from her and made sure that she didn't take anything. Holding on to her, he stared into her eyes. "If you wanted some of my money, you could have asked." He took out 2 coins and handed it to the girl, who quickly took them the moment she could. "What is your name, girl?" he asked her. The girl looked up at him and didn't answer. "Sasama," shouted a voice. Orochimaru turned his head and saw a young man run towards them. He stopped in front of them and got into a fighting stance. "Let my cousin go this instant, or I will be forced to use force," he threatened him with a snarl. Orochimaru noticed that he wore what looked like some sort of necklace around his neck. Orochimaru let the girl go, who went and ran behind him. "I did nothing to the child. Tell me, who are you? I've just gotten here and I'm curious as to who the inhabitants of the place is." The man stayed in his stance but was more relaxed. "My name is Arashi, head of the Fuma clan. What business do you have here?" Orochimaru shrugged. "I have none really, I just entered here." "Then I have no choice but to take you to our ruler. All new people have to report to Lord Koi. I'll go there on my own time. I have no intention of meeting the ruler of this place. If he finds you here, he'll have his men bring you in via force. He does not take kindly to strangers which he knows nothing about, but you seem to be a rich man, I suppose he'll like you." Orochimaru stared at the man, who seemed reluctant to follow this Koi's orders. "Tell me, Arashi, isn't it? Why are you here? This village is one step away from collapsing. Why are you here?" Arashi looked at him, a bit surprised that he had asked him that, and it unnerved him a bit. "What are you talking about? Look around you. The people here haven't had a good meal in days and most of them are sick and will soon die. Why do you bother staying here? If you are the head of a clan, you could convince them to leave this place and seek a better life elsewhere." "Arashi-san, don't listen to him. He's probably one of those old man's spies. If you tell him, he'll probably have you executed," shouted the girl. "Quiet, Sasama. Tell me, sir, why are you asking me that? Not once has anyone cared about my clan." Orochimaru shrugged his shoulders. "I don't really care about it. I'm just curious. I remember seeing ninjas from this land at the Chunin exams years ago, but I never have seen any of them ever again. If I remember, they were defeated rather easily and barely made it past the forest of death." Arashi's eyes narrowed. "It appears that you know nothing of Raya's plight. I shall tell you. Our current ruler Koi, who took command 10 years ago, is a greedy, self-serving fool who only cares for money and himself. If you looked at his palace, you would see how well furnished it is, and that those who have his favor also live well, whilst the rest of us are barely able to get by. My father, who once ruled, was murdered before my eyes. Sasama's parents were killed as well for resisting his rule. The proud Fuma clan has been reduced to a mere figurehead. His men take whatever they want and kill those who resist them. Our people are dying due to his overspending, and with the bad crop, I fear we may not last the next couple of years. He cares nothing for us." Orochimaru looked at him. It was a sad tale. No wonder most of the village was dejected and didn't care anymore. But Arashi, you said that one day soon you'll challenge him and try to win back the village. If you don't, we'll never restore our clan to its former glory. Exclaimed Sasama. Arashi mentioned for her to be quiet, not wanting anyone to overhear. So, you wish to free rice from him, do you not? I think I can help you. Arashi looked at him a bit surprised. What? Why would you help us? You know nothing of us, you'd risk everything just to aid us. Orochimaru shrugged as if it didn't matter. Apparently this man did not know who he was. I'm stronger than I look, and I'm more than capable of holding my own in a fight. You said you can get me in there to tell him, right? Well, that will be his downfall. Get me in and I'll be able to do the rest. Arashi looked at him a bit unsure but looked at his cousin and nodded. Very well, I'll get you in there. I hope you can help us. Leaving Sasama behind, the two made their way to Koi's palace. It was a grand place, much different than the rest of the village. It was well designed and had tapestries and the like. Apparently Koi was living the grand life while the rest of the village suffered under his rule. This disgusted Arashi, which Orochimaru noticed. The two received a couple stares of suspicion from the guards, but other than that they had no problems getting to the main throne room, which was well lit. Sitting on top of a throne with cushions and with guards each holding naganatas was an old man in his 60s. He had white hair and had a cruel look in his gray eyes. At his side were two scantily dressed females who seemed to be ashamed to be there in such ridiculous outfits. The old man sneered and looked at the approaching men. Who is this man, you worthless maggot? Koi asked Arashi. Answer me. Tell me who he is. Arashi scowled at him disgustedly, his hatred clearly written in his eyes. Koi saw that and clenched his hand into a fist. Arashi clutched his throat in anguish as the necklace tightened around him, choking the air out of him. He fell to his knees in pain, clutching his neck. That's enough, shouted Orochimaru. Koi scowled and released his hold on Arashi and glared at him. I have a proposition for you, Koi-sama. Something that I believe will be of great benefit to you, he said with a bow. Koi smirked. What is it that you offer me? Orochimaru looked at him. Tell me, do you know that your people are dying and most will die if you don't change your ways? Koi waved his hand. I do not care about them, they are my subjects and I shall rule over them as I please. If they die, then so the better. Orochimaru then smirked. No wonder your people love their most gracious ruler for the fact that they must starve to death whilst you live a glorious life. Koi scowled at him. Quiet your tongue before I have it removed, he said as his guards gripped their weapons. Be done with your business and be gone before I turn you into a slave like that maggot over there. He warned him, mentioning to Arashi. If Orochimaru was intimidated, he didn't show it. You're no ruler, you're just scum who is all bark and has his men do the biting for him. Koi was now furious. Enough of you. Kill him. He ordered his men, who lowered their weapons and charged him. Orochimaru smirked and waited until they got near before he started making hand symbols. Suddenly a thick darkness covered the entire room. The inhabitants couldn't see or hear anything. Koi called for a light, yet none came. Suddenly the sound of a weapon being drawn and the sound of terrified screaming was heard. When the lights came back on, Koi could only look on in shock as the floor was painted red with the color of blood, from his men who had been sliced apart and some missing body parts as they had a look of horror on their faces. In the center with Kusanagi drawn stood Orochimaru impassively. I am possible. Guards, he shouted as the door behind him opened, revealing more men. Orochimaru was prepared to deal with them when suddenly Arashi went past him and attacked them. Using only taijutsu, he was able to defeat them in his rage and knock them all out. Once he was done with them, he then saw Koi attempting to run away. Koi saw him prepare to go after him and closed his hand into a fist as the necklace around Arashi's throat activated and started choking him, keeping him from going after him. Seeing that he could now get away, Koi attempted to run. He barely got 3 steps when a sword plunged inside him. Looking down, he saw himself impaled with the blade. He slowly turned around and saw the man who stabbed him, who then made hand symbols and cut a bit of blood from his finger. Your reign has ended, Kuchio's no jutsu. A large black snake appeared before him, and seeing him hissed and opened his mouth and dove down. Koi didn't even get the chance to scream as the snake engulfed him, effectively ending his rule. Orochimaru sent his sword away and looked at Arashi. There, it is done, now go do whatever it is you want with this land. Wait. Arashi walked forward to him and much to his surprise kneeled before him. You saved my clan, you saved my home and my village. I am in your debt. Orochimaru rolled his eyes and got ready to chastise him for overreacting when they suddenly heard the door being opened. They then saw Sasama along with a group of people, some armed with weapons, enter the building. They looked at Orochimaru and Arashi, seeing the two. Also, Koi was nowhere in sight. Was it possible? Was the man finally dead? The one who had ruled over them for so long. Sasama, seeing Arashi kneeled as well in front of Orochimaru. He looked at her confused. Slowly the rest of the group of people kneeled as well. Tell me, stranger, what is your name? Asked Arashi to him. Orochimaru. He responded, not sure what to make out of it all. Then so forth, you are the new ruler of Rice Country. All hail Orochimaru-sama. Shouted Arashi, followed by a chorus of yells from the group. Orochimaru looked at the people, confusion in his eyes, but slowly a smile formed on his face. What had basically started as giving some aid to them resulted in him becoming the ruler of a country and loyal followers. Not bad for one day. 1 week later, Kabuto waited outside the gates of Konoha in the dead of night, waiting for the man to appear. He tapped his foot impatiently as he waited. If he was found, he would be questioned for being outside in the middle of the night, and he wished the man he was waiting for would get here soon. Suddenly he heard the hooting of an owl, slowly making sure to keep out of sight of the gate, headed towards the source of it. Once he had gotten a safe distance, he quietly kneeled before the figure before him. I was starting to think you wouldn't come, Orochimaru-sama. He said to him. The pale man smirked. Sorry for not being here so soon, Kabuto, but I had business to attend to. How is Naruto? Kabuto nodded. He is growing and he is doing well at the academy. I've been helping him, and so has Anko. We are giving him aid, though she suspects me. I have yet to gain her trust. He is a good student but has trouble sometimes with the instructors. But other than that, he is doing well. Orochimaru nodded. Good. He's growing well. Has the bastards given him any trouble? Some, but usual me or Anko are able to stop it before it gets out of hand. Anko seems to take a liking to your son, perhaps because she sees you in him. Also, the Uchiha clan has been wiped out. I know that. Itachi Uchiha killed his clan, did he not? All except for his younger brother Sasuke. It was something I didn't even think would happen. Orochimaru nodded and remembered his and Itachi's battle. Kabuto, watch over Naruto for me. I feel that soon I'll be able to get him and take him away from here and raise him. Make sure that he is alright. He then went to leave when he heard Kabuto call him back. I figured that you would want this, sir. I think you would enjoy it very much. He reached into his shirt and pulled out a paper that was folded. He handed it to him. Orochimaru unfolded it and looked at it, wondering what it was. Slowly a smile of happiness formed on his face as he looked at the picture he would hold dear to his heart. Carefully folding it back up, he placed it inside his pocket and left Konoha, preparing to head back to his home, which he now ruled. Inside his pocket was the picture drawn by Naruto of him, Kushina, and their son.